It's time to get nerdy, y'all.
A little bit of gaming history for you.
Something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it.
Should we kick it out of here, or should we kick-start it?
This is the part where you, the listeners, try to stump the hosts.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024, and you know what that means. It's a new year, and also it's time to get nerdy, y'all. Welcome to episode number 292 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. I am Lam, also known as Mr. Nice Guy, and I'm joined by my bestie. I'm joined by my comrade in gaming commentary, the Miggity Mac, also known as Maction. Mac, it's been about a month. How have you been?
Dude, so much crazy has been going on. I helped some family move across the country, and that was wild and crazy. And I mean, like, Mr. Nice Guy, I think I moved about 4 or 5 times during the course of, during a 4 or 5 year section. So, I'm very used to it, you know? And when you move a lot, you sort of make decisions. You don't buy solid oak desks,
right?
Even if that seems like a good thing. When you buy a set of shelves, you think, oh, could I pack these flat if I were to take them apart? And you, donate books to the local library or what have you. When you haven't moved in a while, there's anyway, the point I'm getting at, no shade thrown at my family, but there were some heavy boxes.
Yeah,
we got it done. Nice Guy, we got it done, and that was the important thing. And I was really, I felt very, very blessed that I didn't have things going on so that I could be there for them, because these guys were fantastic people and they had been there for me some years ago in a way that nobody else really was. And so being able to do that for them really made me feel good. I had something to really give back, and just had a wonderful time, to say nothing of the Christmas spent with my nephews, to say nothing of spending some time with some people in the meat space out in Nebraska again.
Nice.
Fantastic. I had an absolutely lovely holiday season. What about you, Mr. Nice Guy?
Dude, it was fantastic. I have absolutely no complaints about the holiday season. Cousin came in from Boston, my good friend, as he does every year, and we had a blast with him. Did some stuff around town, went axe throwing, saw a movie, watched some stuff on his Plex server, and just had a good time all around. Went out to eat a couple times with my neighbor up the street and some other friends that we know, him and my wife. So it was really good. Santa Claus came and my kids had a blast. And it was just a really good Christmas, man. Now I don't really like to talk about presents that I got for Christmas, but today I got a surprise gift in the mail. And I was not expecting this gift. In fact, when I got the box, I thought it was going to be the trophy for the podcast awards, because they said those will be going out. And I don't know if that's going to my house or your house. So I thought, oh, this must be that trophy. When I opened it, Mac, it was not the trophy for the podcast awards. It was something much more special. And I'm going to show people in the chat what it is with an explanation. But I want to get your live reaction when you see this present.
Okay.
Be in suspense.
All right.
All right, so here it is.
What?
Yeah, that was my reaction when I opened the box.
Did they do a re-release for the Switch or something?
They did. Now, for those of you listening to the audio version, this is a complete version of the NES game Little Samson. And to be 100% clear, we all know that game costs $2,500. It's a $2,500 to $3,000 game loose. So in box, it's much more. This is not a real copy of Little Samson. This is a reproduction copy of Little Samson. Regardless, this is an awesome gift. And it was given to me by an in real life friend who has actually recently started listening to our show, Tiancum. And he sent this to me, and I had lunch with him the other day. Him and his wife, his lovely wife, with my wife, and I didn't know he was sending me this, and so shout out to him. Now it did come with a copy of the game, a reproduction copy, so I can play this in my NES, and I love this gift. So thank you so much. It even comes with the manual, Mac. Super rare NES game, wow. And I love it. So I'm very, very happy for that. Yeah, the cover art is insane, right? One of the best NES games ever made, they're saying in the chat. So, Mac, that's what I had to share. And on that note, I say we do what we do best, and we hop not into the gaming news, but Mac, why don't you tell the people what we're going to do for episode 292 today?
Well, new year, we're going to look a little bit into the past, but not the far past as we're used to. I know you're used to listening as we talk about news, about history, about Kickstarters and all that stuff, and legalese to boot, but this one, we wanted to focus on the indie games this past year, specifically all of those indie game devs who were so kind as to share with Mr. Nice Guy and I copies of their games. We wanted to celebrate the ones that we thought were the best from the year. We have appreciated all of them, but there have been some that have been a cut above, and so it is our indie game of the year conversation today.
Correct. And just so people know, there were a lot of indie games that came out this year. Dave the Diver, Sea of Stars. Those are not the games we're doing. As Mac explained it, we're talking strictly about the games that indie devs provided us with codes for. So even lesser known indie games than those other ones that may have been nominated for awards more broadly. And we're excited to shed light and give these games some more recognition. So Mac, I believe we agreed that we're going to do top 5 each of us, and then we'll have an honorable mention. So we'll go back and forth. Mac will do 5, then I'll do 5, and then 4 and 4, and vice versa. And if you have indie games that you liked in the chat, please let us know. We're excited to hear about those. But Mac, would you do the honors and tell us about your number 5, why you chose it, what you liked about it?
Absolutely. My number 5 pick for this year was Bat Boy.
Okay.
So those of you who listened to that episode, you will know what it's about. But for anybody who missed it, Bat Boy was a side-scrolling platformer with bosses. It was kind of a blend of Mega Man and Shovel Knight. The map and the adventures and the general vibe were very much Shovel Knight, while the power-ups were much more Mega Man style. Being able to use these power-ups, these new movesets on any level, and getting them from the boss that you just beat. Now, the general story itself was this sort of high school Power Rangers, Sentai, but sports-themed, where these, high schoolers work to save the world from evil. There was, there were some fantastic things about it, but also some stuff that I was like, not the greatest. Like, there was this trepidation that I had about doing these side quests, which turned out to be sort of the wrong way to approach it, because doing the side quests unlocked the ability to basically get health refills on a level, which was something that would have just made a huge difference if I hadn't waited until basically the very end to go back and do those side quests before I beat the game. But yeah, don't be like me. Use the collectibles. Use those things in Bat Boy. Now, I know, Mr. Nice Guy, that you as well enjoyed Bat Boy, because we both loved it when we played it. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about it.
Well, let's wait and see, because we don't know if I'm going to talk about it, or maybe I won't, but we'll see. The one thing I will say about Bat Boy is, just looking it up really quickly, it is currently on sale for 30% off on the Steam sale until the 4th of January. So if you're interested in that game, you can pick it up for $10.49. Developer X Plus, and Sansei Games, publisher X Plus as well. Nice. Anything else about your number 5, Mac? That was a great description.
Just that, thanks, Mr. Nice Guy, for putting out there the sale that it's on right now. Who knows if by the time you're listening to this after the fact, if it'll still be on sale, but even at full price, definitely a fantastic game. It will keep you entertained for hours, commiserate with the price of that game, for sure.
Cool. Well, my number 5, not Bat Boy, although I did enjoy Bat Boy. My number 5 is a game that I discovered as a result of Steam Next Fest. Now, for those who may not know, Steam Next Fest is effectively a little like demo fest where they put out obviously demos of indie games that you can try before their release, get a feel for them, and helps get the developers some recognition and some hype for their game before it comes out. And when I tried this in the Next Fest, I immediately knew this is something that I would enjoy as someone who really likes the retro style 8-bit Contra, Mega Man style NES games of old, and that game is Prison City. Prison City, just to give you the quick description from the Steam page, a dystopian action-packed side-scroller with tight mechanics and intricate level design. Battle techno-terrorists with your chakram grenades, eat hot dogs for health, and locate contacts to help take down bosses. Now, Mac, if you know me, you know that one of my favorite NES games is Vice Project Doom. I was able to get a copy of it just a few months ago by chance. And this game has some Vice Project Doom vibes. It's not too complicated. You know, there's not a ton of different weapons that you can use, but the level design is really, really good, and it has like Mega Man style like boss setup when you're looking at the main map, which I really, really love that retro style. For those who really like an extra challenge, you can actually turn up the difficulty and make it more retro-like, where you get less lives and less health, which I think is always fun for those of us who really like old school games. But one thing I really liked about this that was a quality of life improvement you don't see in a lot of games like this is that you actually have access to the map as you're going through these levels. Because you can backtrack, it's super nice to be able to see where you've been and to know where the end door is as you're trying to go through the levels. So that was a great quality of life thing. Music was good. Kind of had like a 1980s action movie vibe, but it was like on the nose. It wasn't like they were not self-aware that that's what they were doing. And I just thought it was super clever, but not overly complicated. And I think this is a great game. That's my number 5.
Fantastic pick. Yeah, Programmancer as a developer does great work. I think I first noticed his stuff when he was working on basically a Castlevania style game that he was just like, this is totally not Castlevania, totally legally distinct from Castlevania, Simon's Quest or Trevor's Quest, or anyway, point being, that developer, Programmancer, has a very good, shall we say, good sense of humor and idea of tone in all the games that I've seen from him so far.
So just so people know, I mean, as of this recording, you know, if you hear this after January 4th, it may not be the case, but currently Prison City on sale for 20% off at $7.99. Demo's still there as well if you're curious. That's my number 5.
Fantastic. Well, my number 4, Mr. Nice Guy, is Lunark. And this game, so my jam. I remember Out of This World, or you might know the game as Another World, very fondly. I remember Flashback. I remember just the rotoscoping style. So Lunark, right? You're in a dystopian future. Man, there's a theme with dystopias.
Right.
But you're in this dystopian future, and what you're doing is you're essentially trying to take down the man who's using Lunark, and I don't want to spoil it in case you're going to play it yourself, but it's very much a little guy against the establishment. And in it, it's a platformer. You're climbing and around, but very much in that style of Flashback and Another World, or Prince of Persia, the early ones. Very 2D, very tight, puzzles galore, and every so often you'll interact with something and you'll get that beautiful rotoscope moment where it's somebody who's been filmed making a movement or picking up an object, and then that has been painstakingly pixelized, and it has rotoscoping has this fluidity that just isn't present in a lot of presentations of pixel art, and I think it's one of the things that I just loved. It hits all the right notes for me. And I think even more, well, not even more so, but just as much as anything else, Lunark was a game that we talked about in Kick or Kickstart segment of our regular show way, way, way back in the day. And it took a while, but granted, to see it come out, to see it being, an actually realized game the way that we were expecting it to, and to have the developer be willing to share the game with us because he wanted us to, wanted our opinions on it, is incredibly and deeply touching. But even if it wasn't, even if we had not that history, I would still be putting this at number 4 because I just loved it so much.
I will agree with you, and I'll leave it at that for now, that Lunark is a great game. It looks like it is currently not on sale on the Steam sale. It's currently $19.99 on Steam. But we've talked about this before. I think it's worth $19.99. So if that's your type of game, check it out. Also, it does still have a playable demo on there. So that's always good.
Yep.
Well, cool. My number 4 is one that may surprise some of you, because this is a game that we just reviewed recently, and I tried to make this list void of recency bias. So I really looked back through all the games I had played, right, that we had played, and thought, I want to make sure I'm picking the best 5, not just the ones that are most present in my mind. This one is probably the most beautiful of all the games that we played in terms of visual presentation, in terms of tight controls, and just in terms of like having things going on in the foreground, having things going on in the background, and just being fun to play. And that game is the thing that I really liked the most about this game is that as a busy father, busy person generally, I could pick this up, I could play a level or two, and I could very, very easily put it back down. And it was very satisfying to go back and try to finish my score. Or beat my score, rather. Let me really quickly read a description of this game so that people really know what I'm talking about, especially our audio listeners. So this is from Steam. Jump into the retro future world with the nostalgic arcade journey of a tiny robot, ZX8000. Experience an engaging story, upgrade your robot abilities, challenge yourself in stages full of ever-changing gameplay mechanics, and compete with other players in global and friend leaderboards. So this is one of those games, it's a platforming game where you can beat most levels in 60 seconds or less, but it's just a matter of being able to navigate the level as quickly and efficiently as possible without getting hit, because it's one hit and you die. There are little things you can collect, little screws, little bolts that you can collect, and that adds to the fun if you want to get a perfect score. And there's leaderboards. And so I know Mac and I were going back and forth for a while trying to see who could get the highest score. And it's just a really, really made game. It's colorful. It's vibrant. The story is completely irrelevant. But it's just a fun pick up and play that's ideal for the Steam Deck. And I had a blast with it. So by developer ko.dll and published by Cinemax Games. Thank you for the codes.
There is one thing I want to say about Bzzzt, and that is that when I was on my flight into Omaha, there was a kid, probably 7 years old, right, sitting next to me on the airplane. It was, him, his grandma who he was flying with, and myself sharing a bank of seats. He had energy, right, like all young kids do on a flight cooped up. So I pull out my Steam Deck and I load up Bzzzt, and he just, bam, zooms in and cues in and watched me for the good part of the flight, just playing to see if I could get faster and faster times. It was, it was real fun and a lovely moment that I had thanks to it.
That's awesome, man. What a game. What a game. Currently, it is part of the Steam sale. And if you're interested in it, you can pick it up for $9.59. That's 20% off. That's my number 4.
All right, well, now to number 3. My number 3 pick, Lone Fungus.
Okay.
Pure Metroidvania bliss in Lone Fungus. This is another game that Nice Guy and I talked about as part of the Kick or Kickstart back in the day, and to see it come out is, of course, always delightful, but it would stand on its own. For those of you who don't play many Metroidvania games, that genre generally speaks to the styles of Metroid as well as Castlevania, the idea being that you will open up areas, new areas, that were previously unreachable with power-ups that you get as you go along, characterized by a lot of backtracking as well as a lot of mystery and combat. And Lone Fungus excelled in so many of these ways. Huge, huge map. Tons of different enemies and different things, and power-ups, and you had a power-up style kind of like Hollow Knight with these equipable charms, basically. And while we were first playing it, I know Mr. Nice Guy and I had some feedback as to, oh, this was too expensive of a charm for what you're getting. And I'm sure we weren't the only ones, but we even saw shortly after our conversations about it, these things change and shift around in a way that we, that we certainly approved of. Not saying that he did it because of us, but, but just that it is definitely a developer who seemed to be actively interested in the way that people gave feedback and shared his game, and we were thrilled to have it shared with us. And for those of you who haven't listened to it before, you are, it says it in the title, a lone fungus, a mushroom in a desolate world that's just trying to get by. And as you go, maybe you get caught up in trying to, I don't know, bring some vibrancy, some life back to this world of yours. Life or destruction, who's to say? And man, I loved Lone Fungus.
Yeah, it was a dope game. I'm going to hold off on saying too much more, although I will say it is currently on sale as part of the Steam sale. So you can get that for 38% off. Wow, what a deal. For $12.39. If you like Metroidvania,
buy it.
Yeah, buy it, for sure. Publisher Basti Games, developer Basti Games, thank you again for the codes, and congrats on making a great game. So, Mac, my number 3 overlaps. We're starting to see the overlap in our lists, and I'll just dive right in. My number 3 was Lunark. Now, I don't necessarily have the same gaming history as you do with some of those older pixel games, but I saw this one, and I immediately knew that it was a Maction-style game, and I knew that it was one that I would enjoy as well. I think that one thing Mac and I have in common is that we both like the idea of the little guy, the underdog, taking down the big evil corporation or the big organization, And like Max said, we don't want to spoil the game too much, but the theme, the artwork, it wasn't completely linear either. There's a few different secrets you can find. And so it was just the perfect comfort food of a game. That's how I would describe Lunark. And one of the things that really impressed me about it is when we talked about it, I said, do you think that this game is worth $20? Based on, the length of the game, based on the fact that it's pixelated graphics. And we both agreed that it is, because there's a lot of heart and soul that goes into this game. We're here to focus on the positive, but I also want to say, some of the jump mechanics, could frustrate me at times just because this isn't a style that I have a ton of experience with, trying to grab ledges and things like that. But the game is fantastic. And I would say that of most of the games on my list, this one had a better story than a lot of them. I really was digging the story. And so this is one that I recommend without reservation. That's my number 3. Shout out to Lunark.
Awesome. Well, number 2 for me, Mr. Nice Guy, I think you might be a bit surprised. is Dust and Neon.
Really?
Yeah, I have been incredibly vocal about not liking the genre of twin stick shooters, and I still stand by that. And this is part of the reason why Dust and Neon goes for second place for me, because it earned its spot with its charm and its style. And for somebody who hates the genre, being won over, I knew that this would have to be on the list, just for that reason. Now, it's not a perfect game. It's not without its issues. One issue I had, for example, is that once I got my hands on, like, a good gun in the game that I liked, it was almost never worth swapping out for a different one. And rarely, if ever, did the guns with better stats on paper ever truly amount to a different weapon. In this game, you are a human who has essentially died and is now roboticized, or partially. You're a cyborg now. And there's all these robots around, and you are working alongside with a basically crazy Dr. Frankenstein, who you guys are raging against the robots, trying to destroy them. It has lots of, like I said, it's a twin stick shooter in style, but it has lots of gun and cover mechanics where you are diving behind cover, dodging around things, and all sorts of different types of machines and robots coming for you with explosives, with things that make it harder for you to damage enemies in the immediate vicinity, and of course with boss fights, and there's a little bit of everything there. And when you really, I felt like when you really kind of clued into the fighting style that worked for you and got some guns that really worked well for you, the game just sang. And it had shorter play sessions. You could pick it up, play for 5 minutes, put it down. Not quite as short a play sessions as Bizzt, but really, really good for letting you pick it up, do some gaming, put it back down, and it left you wanting more. You wanted to put in another level, and I wound up putting in a lot more time than I expected to Dust and Neon, and I felt like it really shone through with just the good craftsmanship of the game.
Nice. Now, Dust and Neon is not one that made my list, but I will say I enjoyed the game. It had the potential with the different mechanics in the game to be a mess. You know, anytime you're doing like a top-down twin stick shooter that also has cover mechanics, like just getting the accuracy of the bullets right could be an issue, but I think that they did a really good job of keeping the controls tight. So I was really impressed by that. As far as price, Mac, just so the people know, this one is on sale as of right now for the Steam sale at a whopping 75% off. So if you're into this type of game, they're trying to give it away. It's $4.99 currently, normally $19.99. Developer,
even if you're not usually into the twin stick style, like I said, it won me over. Give it a go.
Yeah. Dave Marquant Studios developer, published by Rogue Games Incorporated. Awesome. Well, Mac, that was your number 2, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. My number 2 is one that I know we both enjoyed, and I'll be interested to see if it makes your list later on or in your honorable mentions. But my number 2 came from a studio that I feel is heavily, heavily underrated. And this is a studio that has made multiple games. I follow them on Twitter, and the guy who runs the Twitter account is just hilarious. I remember when I asked for this game, they gave me a key for both of their games, but they only gave me one key. And so I messaged him back, and I said, hey, I actually have a business partner, a co-host. Can I actually get 2 copies of each? And he was like, oh, how will I ever recover? And he was kidding, and he gave us 2 keys, very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Very, very kind guy. My number 2 game is Prodigal. And I'm trying to pull it up on Steam just so I can read the description. But if I was just to off the cuff tell you how I would describe Prodigal, it's effectively a Link to the Past style puzzling dungeon with like love mechanics. where you can marry different characters. You complete different dungeons with monsters, Link's Awakening style. I think I said Link to the Past. I meant Link's Awakening. Game Boy style graphics, beautiful game. This one actually came out a couple years ago. This one came out in 2020. But just a phenomenal game. There are side quests. There are a ton of items to collect. There's a ton of different weapons. There are a lot of dialogue options as you're walking around in this world and interacting with different characters. And it's also, it's kind of a redemption story, Your character had done some things in the past that maybe he wasn't proud of, but returns to his hometown and finds that things have changed and is effectively working to redeem himself. And I don't think that words are really going to do this justice, but I think that it was a phenomenal game. Just the amount of content that is in there, the graphics, the story, and just the amount of pure fun and humor that is in this game. Plus, I'm a sucker for Link's Awakening. So if you have any memory or enjoyment of that game, I could almost guarantee that you would enjoy this one. That is Prodigal.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't say anything about Prodigal at this moment for reasons, but good stuff.
$3.74 right now on the Steam sale, which is
an absolute steal.
Yeah, it's crazy. Publisher is Color Grave, developer is Color Grave. That's 75% off, normally $14.99, which is also a steal. Go buy this game. It's a great game. Great on Steam Deck. That's my number 2.
Okay, well, before we hit our number 1s, I think it's worth some honorable mentions. Mr. Nice Guy, I know the tradition is to just give, an honorable mention, but there were so many good ones. I've got 5 honorable mentions.
Wow.
5 games that could have easily made this list, but just for whatever reason didn't quite. You mind if I just, knock them out?
I want to hear them.
Okay, Bzzzt is an honorable mention for me. Great game, had lots of fun. Maybe I erred too far on the side of being no to recency bias and was just I need to keep it off for that reason. Who knows? I'm glad that you put it as your number 4 because it deserves a place on the list. It was almost there for me. Prison City,
yep.
Also honorable mention, just almost right there. Vernal Edge,
okay,
was one that I loved and enjoyed and appreciated. Its Devil May Cry style juggling combat that it encouraged in the gameplay, and a Full Void was just so close to the list for me. And Curse Crackers, the second game that you mentioned by Color Grave Studios, and Curse Crackers takes place in the same universe, same multiverse, I guess, universe type thing, but it has a different style. It's more Game Boy esque, a lot more sort of Kirby style platformer. Yeah. But yeah, those are some honorable mentions. It was so hard to make this list, and these games still all deserve all the love in the world.
It's interesting because I feel like our list of games that we played this year, and by the way, for those who are curious about the numbers, I think the total games that we played in this space this year for indies that we got codes for was just over 20. I think it was 21. Mm-hmm. You think about 21 games over a 12-month period. Some of these games you could beat in 5 hours. Some of them, you put in 15 to 20. So, I mean, that's a lot of games. And I would say almost all of them were really, really good. So please go back, listen to old episodes if you're curious about how we felt more in depth about any of those games. But in terms of my honorable mentions, I'm just going to share one, and then I'm going to share another special game that I want to give recognition to. The one game that I have as an honorable mention is Bat Boy. Bat Boy is one game that when I saw the video, the trailer, I immediately got excited. I was like, this is a LOM game. This is a nice guy game. This is an action game. We're both going to enjoy this. And I would say of the games we played, it hit that sweet spot of being fun, but being difficult. There's another game I can think of that I'm not going to say that was just way too difficult and was just way too frustrating. Bat Boy had that mix of fun, but also not being too linear, and then also having stretches where you had to go a long way between save points. And so there could be some frustration there, but also it equipped you with the tools to creatively find ways to get through those different platforming segments, which I always find to be fun, and to defeat those enemies. You think back to like Super Mario Brothers back in the day, but it's really like one or two ways you can defeat enemies. With games nowadays where you have like Mega Man style power-ups, there's so many different ways you can defeat the enemies or get to higher points in the game. It's just great, and I think they did a good job of that. So shout out to Bat Boy. The other game that I want to give a shout out to, and this is interesting because this is the first year in our 6-7 years of podcasting that we've really started to ask for codes. And I probably should have started to do it sooner. But the first game that we ever got is one that I only played because it was one that I was really interested in, and it's called Shooting Saucer. And the reason I want to give a shout out to this game is just because it's ridiculously simple, but brings back some of that NES nostalgia that I felt as a kid. And also, because it is the first game that I ever got a code for as part of this pod, it holds a special place and really gave me the confidence to be like, yeah, we should be getting these codes and we should be giving our opinions, Mac and I, on these games. And so I want to give a shout out to Stink's Adventure, who made Shooting Saucer. Check that game out if you like old school games like that. And Mac, that's my honorable mention. Well, it's time for the moment of truth, my friend. And
yes,
I think we should not waste any more time. And would you like to do the honors of sharing your number one game?
I would love to. My number one pick, Prodigal. Everything Mr. Nice Guy said is true. Dungeon crawling, love. There's a whole town of NPCs that play very much like the townsfolk from Stardew Valley, with daily schedules and, again, romancing options, side quests, tons of character interactions. And in spite of the map being relatively small and mostly connected to just really the town and the immediate environs, there's a whole lot going on there. And I think what I loved most was just that there was so much more to the game than you expected. If you got a look at the map overall and you were like, hey, this doesn't seem like a lot of area to explore, you are just in for a treat. And of course, with Nice Guys mentioning of it being under $5 right now as it's on sale, you will spend so many hours playing in this game that you will just discovering the new things. And you feel like you get to the end, and then the end game opens up, and it is easily as much content. When you feel like you've completed the game, there's easily as much content beyond. So just fantastic and just a terrific game. Color Grave should be proud of what they've put out. Curse Crackers, the other game of their that we've had the delight to play, was on my honorable mentions, could have easily been on the list, but Prodigal definitely deserved, for me, spot at number one.
It's crazy to me that they have not gotten more attention, and it's really a testament to just number one, how many games there are on Steam, and number two, just how oversaturated gaming is in general. Because if this was a Game Boy game back in, call it 1995, 1992, it would have been probably the best Game Boy game out there, right? Now, granted, there's quality of life things that we've learned in gaming over the years, but this game is just super, super well made, and I'm surprised that it hasn't gotten more critical acclaim. So, Prodigal is one that I could recommend. Well, Mac, my number one is one that was on your list as well. Now, if you know me, I'm a sucker for Metroidvanias. I absolutely love them. And I'm also a sucker for Hollow Knight. That's probably in my top 5 games of all time. And I don't necessarily like games that try to be derivative of others. I don't feel like this game did that. but I feel like it took some of the best aspects of Hollow Knight and put them into this Metroidvania, and that game is Lone Fungus. I think about games on the list that I'd be willing to replay, and this is one of them. Like, it's been long enough since we played this several months ago that I think I could go in and enjoy myself playing this game again. So that is what I have to say about that.
And that is our top 5 indie games. Once again, these are the indie games that that indie developers were kind enough to share with us. We appreciate you. We appreciate you letting us in behind the red velvet rope and seeing what it's all about. And almost every one of them knocked it out of the park. It was insanely hard to choose because of the sheer amount of love, dedication, time, and ideas that go into making all of these so wonderful. But these are the ones that did it best, and all of them deserve to be picked up. But these ones especially get on them because they're just fantastic. And that's all I've got to say about that. But Mr. Nice Guy, we can't end a show without talking about the cool, nerdy stuff that we have been into. And we want all of you who are here with us live to do so as well. Let us know those cool, nerdy things that you got up to over the holidays.
Yeah. So, Max, should I do the honors, or do you want to do the honors of stuff we've been watching?
I would love to lead off if you don't mind. So sadly, I have been so busy since we recorded last, helping people move across the country, flying, hanging out with family and friends, that I sadly have basically not played that many games at all over the past, 3-4 weeks. But I have watched a lot of good stuff with friends. And most of what I've enjoyed, surprisingly enough, have been just a couple of shows that are easily or, fun to watch. One, a good old standby, Deep Space Nine. Absolutely love Deep Space Nine, Star Trek, Deep Space Nine. Good stuff, great show. Another one is a show that is it's a Bridgerton. It's in Bridgerton, but it's not quite Bridgerton. It's called Charlotte, and it's about another set of characters in that sort of Bridgerton verse, if you will. Surprisingly, shockingly compelling. But yeah. Oh, and Taskmaster, of course. That's what I've been mostly watching. How about you, Mr. Nice Guy? What have you been playing and watching?
Dude, so I've been playing Mario Wonder, which is a good game. I've been enjoying that, Super Mario Wonder on the Nintendo Switch. And my neighbor was kind enough to let me borrow Spider-Man 2. He had a copy of it, and I was like, do I want to spend $70 on an 18-hour story? I really don't. And so he was kind enough to let me borrow that game, so I've been playing that. And that's really the 2 games that I've been into, other than some zombies with my cousin while he was here and a little Halo. But as far as watching, we went out to the movies. We went to go see the new Disney movie Wish with the kids. And that was fine. It was a Disney movie. I enjoyed it. It was good. Good message. And then we watched, I hadn't seen Into the Spider-Verse 2 yet. So we watched that and just got caught up on some other shows on Apple TV that my cousin has gotten me into. I wish I could remember the names of all of them. One of them is it's like a historical fiction show. If the Americans were not the first to land on the moon, and instead the Russians beat us there. And so it's kind of an interesting look at what history might have looked like if that happened. I wish I could remember the name of the show. And yeah, just watching some different things, basketball and whatnot. It's been good. What are people into in the chat? Oh, they're being quiet today.
Yeah, well, I'll read them out, but I do have to say, Mr. Nice Guy, that that Spider-Man 2 Across the Spider-Verse, I did not realize when I walked into that theater back in late May to watch it when it came out, I didn't realize that it was setting up to be the midpoint of a trilogy. And so I very much at the end, as it was coming up, I was just like, wait, this has been a pretty long show, and they really haven't wrapped anything up. If anything, the tension's getting higher. Oh no. And then suddenly I was just like, oh, Okay.
I see what they're doing.
Also, curse you! But, you know, that's how you always feel. Well, let's see. What have we got? Ishmael's been watching Stargate SG-1 and Rule of Comey, as well as UHF. That's the Weird Al Yankovic movie. Loved that back when it came out. And has been playing Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And Spennis the Menace has on offer. He's been watching mostly The Big Bang Theory, but has been playing Magic, D&D, and, you know, lots of little games here and there to hold him over before the 2024 Game of the Year begins. Ooh, looking forward to that. Uncle Ruckus has been playing the finals, Madden 24, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So, fantastic. It's a great way to start a new year with good friends and good suggestions.
Fantastic. I've been playing a little bit of the finals, too. Not sure if it's my cup of tea, but I'm going to give it another shot, Ruckus. You and me, buddy. Well, Mac, why don't you take us home, my friend?
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for coming out to the show, for being here and helping to make episode 292 what it was. We are excited for another year of Two Nerds in a Pod, for another year with you, and for just another year of Vidya Gamings. If 2023 was any indication, 2024 is going to be off the hook. But we've got to make it there, and we'll make it together every Tuesday afternoon at 7 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central, here at twitch.tv/Two Nerds in a Pod for the live show. If you ever want to come out, you're always welcome. But if you just like listening after the words, thanks. You're awesome too. We will see you next week. And until then, be excellent to each other and keep it nerdy. We'll see you then.
Deuces. Happy New Year, y'all. Bye.